Hi everyone, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be this Geode glitter tumbler. Like always, I'll have all of my materials that I use for this tumbler in my description below, including links and coupon codes for glitter. And for all of my beginners, I will have 5 or 6 help videos down in the below the description, so be sure to check that out. Let's go ahead and get started with this tumbler. I'm starting with a 30-ounce stainless steel tumbler. I sanded my tumbler down with 180 grit sanding block, and then I sprayed it down with 91% alcohol. You can use 99% alcohol to wipe it down as well. And then I sprayed it with a flat or matte white spray paint. Now I'm going to apply the glitter using the epoxy method. I'm going to apply a pretty white opal glitter. It is Opal Andy by Grateful Glitters, and I'll have this in the description below. I'm using a very little amount of epoxy on this tumbler. I'm letting the epoxy act as an adhesive, so I don't want a lot of epoxy. So a way that I like to think about this is if you turn your tumbler off and your epoxy starts dripping, then you've added too much epoxy. So sometimes I even turn my tumbler turner off, and I'll just apply it that way, and then I'll hand crank it myself, and that way I'll know I've applied enough epoxy whenever it's not dripping. So you just want a very, very thin coat. So this is just going to be an adhesive. So the way I also like to think about it is if I were to spray like a spray adhesive on this tumbler, the glitter will stick to the spray adhesive. And if you see that spray adhesive, it is very, very thin. So you want that very thin coat of epoxy on the tumbler. My epoxy's on my tumbler, and for my next step, I'm going to take my glitter and just pour it onto the tumbler. And I'm just making sure I'm getting an even covered tumbler. So I'm just gonna let the tumbler spin, and I'm just patting the container like a salt shaker. And I'm just letting the glitter fall on the tumbler. I have my glitter on my tumbler, and now I'm going to allow it to spin on the cup turner for 2 hours. After 2 hours, I'm going to turn off my cup turner, and then I'll allow it to air dry or air cure for 3 hours. So my total drying time is going to be 5 hours. So I'll see y'all in about 5 hours. All right, guys, I'm back. If I sound a little funny, it's because I have my face mask on. My tumbler is dry. I'm now going to turn on my cup turner, and I'm going to apply a coat of epoxy over the glitter. This is a 30-ounce tumbler, so I'm going to use 30 ounces of epoxy to put over this glitter. You don't want a very, very thick coat of epoxy. You just want enough for it to be sealed in. So don't worry about putting that thick coat, because we're going to be put another coat of epoxy over this to really make it seal. So if there are some areas where you see that there's like some bumps on the tumbler, that's all right. Just place all your epoxy on the tumbler, and then we'll go ahead and let this spit on the turner. If you want to put 35 or maybe 40 milliliters of epoxy, if that makes you feel better to put it more on the tumbler, you can. Go ahead and mix 40 milliliters of epoxy instead of the 30 that I'm using. After I place all this epoxy on the cup, I'm going to allow my tumbler to spin on the cup turner for about 6 to 8 hours. After it's been on the cup turner for 6 to 8 hours, I'm then going to let it air dry or air cure for another 12 or 15 hours or so. So after 6 to 8 hours, turn it off, let it air cure, and then and then it will be done air curing. So as long as you have a total drying time of 20 to 24 hours, your tumbler will be good to go for the next step. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this. I'm gonna let it spin and then cure, and then we'll move on to adding the geode to the tumbler. Hey guys, I'm back with my tumbler. The epoxy is completely dried. It's been longer than 24 hours, so you can see, I hope you can see the epoxy on this tumbler. I'm now going to move on to my geode part. So I'm going to be applying green glitters to this tumbler. All of my glitters are from Glitter Heart Company. I'll go over each of the names with you. And I will be applying my glitter using the Mod Podge method. So I have this Mod Podge I purchased from Amazon. You can also get it from Walmart or Target. And then I have two of my Mod Podge or sponge brushes. They are two different sizes. It doesn't matter which size you use. I just like this one, the smaller one, just in case I need to get into little smaller areas. And then I have my paint tray. You can use paper, you can use aluminum foil, whichever you need. I just use this to dump the Mod Podge into the tray. So I have 5 colors that I grabbed from my glitter shelf. I don't know if I'll be using all 5 of these colors, but these are the 5 colors that I'll be using with my tumbler. I have this frosted Mojito. I have money bags. I have Wasabi. I have salted Margarita. It's like a silver and green. And then I have key lime pie. They're all different sizes of glitter, meaning like one's chunky. I have a fine one. I have a medium grade one. I call this medium grade. So you don't have to use all chunky or all fine. You can mix it up a little bit. I personally like using thicker than thinner. So I personally like using the chunkier glitter than the fine glitter because it gives it more depth and it looks more like a geode gem than the fine glitter. But if you only have fine glitter, you can always just use your fine glitter if that's all you have on hand. I just want to show you one that I just finished. So I just put 2 geodes on mine. You can put like a circle one in the middle. I like to carry mine underneath because that looks kind of cool. So I think I use 4 glitters, maybe 3 glitters on this one. But you could see I use like a medium grade here, which is this light purple. And then I use a fine glitter, and then I use a chunky glitter. And then I use another chunky glitter. So I use 4 colors on this one. So you don't have to only use fine and you don't have to only use the chunky. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this. So I have my Mod Podge in my tray and I'm using my Mod Podge brush. I'm going to apply my lightest color first, which is the Salted Margarita. And this is a chunky glitter. And I'm going to dip my Mod Podge brush into my Mod Podge, and I'm going to just dab it on the tumbler. So don't overthink this because when I first started these, I thought this process. So just dab this, and the reason why I start with my lightest color first is actually easier shown than said. So I'm just going to explain it to y'all here in a second. So I'm making this rather big, and what I do is I make it bigger at the bottom, and then I like to have mine personally like a point at the end. You don't have to make yours a point. However you want to do yours, so be it. So you can make it huge, you can make it small, you can make a lot of small ones. It's a geode, so this is something that is supposed to look natural. It's from the earth, and it's not supposed to look perfect. So that's the beauty of this. So you can see mine kind of looks like a triangle. I don't know if you can see the Mod Podge on the tumbler, but it is on my tumbler. I'm trying not to make it look like a triangle, but it's just looking like a triangle right now, which is okay. This is my first color. You can always fix it. So I have my Mod Podge on my tumbler. I'm going to now sprinkle my lightest color on my tumbler, which is gorgeous because it's a color shifting. It's like silver and green. So it's only going to stick where the Mod Podge is. So make sure you have, you put a lot of glitter on there to make sure it's sticking to all that area. So I'm gonna take my finger, however you wanna do it. I just wipe off any pieces that might've stuck. And then while I'm here, I'm gonna have to do this at the end, so I might as well just do this now. I know a lot of people, they've been using wax paper and putting the wax paper over their tumbler at the end and just smushing it down, pressing it down. And that presses down the chunky glitter. But I'm old-fashioned, I don't have any wax paper, and I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way and use my hand or my finger and then just press it down. I am not wearing gloves for this only because as everybody knows that it's a very limited supply with gloves right now. So If you want to wear gloves to protect your hands, go wear gloves. If you don't, to save some money and materials, don't wear gloves. So I have all the glitter on my tumbler. I'm going to pick up this mess and then we're going to move on to the next color. My next color is going to be this pretty wasabi. I have no idea how these colors are going to look together, but we're going to find out. I'm not a green fan, so I'm not good with matching greens together. I just wanted to do something different because I know a lot of people, they typically do like purples and blues and reds. So I thought I'd do some green. So I'm dabbing my Mod Podge brush inside of my Mod Podge, and then I'm just going around that green. And again, I'll explain the reason why I chose the lighter color first here soon. So please have some patience. And I'm just dabbing. If you notice, I'm not doing this like really, really slowly. I'm not trying to make sure the line's like really, really straight because I don't want straight lines. I want this to look kind of messy. If you can see, mine looks messy. The lines aren't straight. That's how I want it to look because naturally, that's how geodes are. If you need some inspiration, just Google geodes and pull up a picture while you're making this tumbler on your laptop. And just go off of that. So you can see it's not like a straight line. Sometimes the OCD in me kicks in and I need a straight line. So what I do is I just take my Mod Podge and I kind of like dab it the other way. I put the Mod Podge like this way instead of that way so I can kind of mess up the line some because I'm like, oh, that line looks too straight. Let's go ahead and unstraighten that line. I need some curviness. And you can overlap your Mod Podge. If it gets on your chunky part or your other color, that's fine. It's not going to look bad. So I'm going to take my wasabi and I just got a new paper. And so make sure your paper is, your catch paper is cleared with all the last glitter. So now I'm just going to pour this on my tumbler where I placed that new Mod Podge line. And then I'm going to spin it that way so I don't spin it on top of the other Mod Podge. And of course, there goes my heavy hand with that. And then I'm just going to let it fall again. And then I'm going to finish up this last section. You can see how it starts to look like that geode. Now, again, I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to wipe it off, wipe that glitter off where there's no Mod Podge. And what I like to do periodically is I put my tumbler over my trash can, and then I blow my glitter into my trash can. So that just gets like excess glitter. And I also just kind of tap it. It taps the excess off. Okay, so you see this side is kind of not straight. To me, it's kind of wonky. There's missing a part. And this side's kind of straight. I don't want that straight side. So again, I'm going to just try to mess it up a little bit. I'm just going to dab some Mod Podge around it. If you see, I put a little piece there. Just try to like mess it up just a bit. Let it go out. Like don't have the same like width to the line. If that's what you like, keep it that way. But I like a messier look. I like things overlapping with these. I like it to look kind of messy and more natural. I don't want it to look like I just did this and try to make it look like perfection. So I'm just going to try to mess this up just a little bit if I can. And then we'll move on with that next color. All right, so I fixed it by messing it up. It might look the same to y'all, but as long as I'm happy with this, it's my tumbler, so sometimes I overthink too, even though I tell you not to. So now for my next step is going to be the frosted mojito, and that's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to take my Mod Podge, and I'm just going to apply it to my tumbler. And I'm going to press down more because I want the line to be a little thicker. Again, you can use a different size brush if you want it thicker. And then I'm going to kind of put it towards the top there and then do the same thing on that other side and just dab it down and then kind of make that point to the side. Just like that. And then now I'm going to place my glitter on my tumbler. You see, I'm trying, naturally, I just want to make this line straight. So if you're having OCD like me, It's all right. We'll get through it together. So now I'm going to apply this glitter to the tumbler. Ooh, that's a green glitter. Again, I didn't know how this tumbler would look with all these glitters together. So I'm gonna try to get this on camera for y'all and still apply it. And then I'm going to hit the other side, and I'm just letting all that excess fall down because I can always just put that right back in the cup. So I'm doing the top now. And you see, if I apply the glitter on this side, I'm going to turn the tumbler this way so the excess glitter can fall this way. There's no reason for me to turn it this way and cross over that glitter that's already on that tumbler. So you have to remember, this Mod Podge isn't dry yet. If you want to wait, apply your glitter, your Mod Podge, and then let the Mod Podge dry and then apply another coat of glitter, you can go ahead and do that. But to save time, I just let the Mod Podge dry at one time. So now you can see that is coming together very nicely. I actually like those colors together. All right, so to answer the question, the reason why I start with the lighter color is so I can add a darker color on top of this. So what I'm going to do is, yes, the Mod Podge is still wet underneath here, but it's been like probably 10 minutes. So I'm going to take my Mod Podge brush, make sure my catch paper is clean. I'm going to take my Mod Podge brush and I'm just going to create another little geode. Trying not to make it straight, but naturally I just want to make it straight. So I'm just going to put another geode right here, or another thing of Mod Podge right here, keeping that same design. So, and this makes it look kind of messy. I know I wasted the glitter underneath here. It might be a little thicker. So if you don't want to do it this way, if you want to just start with a color small, big, 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 with that, I feel like I overthink that. So this is a way that has helped me, is I just apply this right over it. And it's not chunky glitter on chunky glitter. I'm adding my fine on top of this chunky glitter. And I pressed down my chunky glitter right after I applied it. So now I'm just going to apply that glitter right over that wet, that freshly wet geode spot. So I'm just going to apply that there, trying to put it all on that new Mod Podge that I just laid down. And then I'm going to spin it real quick and then tap on my tumbler. And like I said, what I do is I just blow off. You can see there's some glitter there. I'm going to blow this off to my trash can. You can see the glitter is not even there anymore. Okay, so I have my fine glitter on my tumbler, and I really like this Salted Margarita, which is this chunky glitter, because it's kind of like a silver. It's a silverish green, so it's really complementing that green really, really well. So for my next step, I'm going to do the other side, so the up top side, or the top of the tumbler, and then I'll do the bottom. I wait to do my bottom until the last, because if I need to set my tumbler right side up, if I have to finish it later, it's just easier to just set it right side up. Or if you want to do the bottom now, just put it on a drying rack like so, whichever you want to do. I tend to forget about my bottoms, so if I add the glitter now, then I'll accidentally scrape it or mess it up somehow. So I'm going to do the top, and you're going to do it the same way as the bottom. Again, if you want to do this smaller color first and then just keep working your way out, you can do that, whichever way is easier for you. So I'm going to try to do the smaller one first and see what happens. I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure other people do it. So I'm just going to start with a smaller area, and I'm going to Mod Podge it and try not to get chunkies on there. So it's going to be about this size. I don't know if y'all can see that because it's white on white. And then I'm going to add the glitter. I'm just going to pour the glitter where the Mod Podge is, and with this, there's no other Mod Podge on here, so it's not going to stick anywhere else. Okay, so now I'm just going to wipe off the excess, and then we'll move on to the next color. You don't have to do this in order, so you don't have to add that Salted Margarita and the same as the other side. You can add whichever color you want to add next. So I'm going to go in with my Mod Podge again and just trim that outside of the smaller section that I just added, and just adding the Mod Podge to there, making kind of a point. I personally like that point. And I'm going to add the frosted Mojito instead of that Salted Margarita next. So that nice bright green that I really, really liked, it shocked me how much I like this. I'm just gonna pour it on that side, tap off the excess. You can see that's really, really pretty. And then I'm going to pour it on the other side and then tap that off. And my apologies for not mentioning this before. This glitter is a medium cut glitter, so it's not chunky, it's not fine. So I still press down on this glitter because it does come up some. It is so, so pretty. But I make sure I press down on it so I don't have that bumpiness. So make sure you go back to your other side and just press down on that glitter to really have that glitter stick. And this is gonna help you avoid much sanding in the future. So you're still gonna have to probably sand this, but if you press down on your glitters, you won't have to sand it as much. And everybody knows I hate sanding. My next color is going to be that Salted Margarita, so that silver color. Now, again, this is chunky glitter, so I don't want my line as thick, or as thin, excuse me. I want my line thinner than thicker. It's just easier to lay. It's chunky glitter, so this is to really, to pop, to show it off. You saw on this side how pretty this made this color pop. So you just want to make that line thicker since it's a thicker cut glitter. I'm going to lay this down just like as I would the other glitters. I want to show this color off a little bit more, so I'm going to add a little bit of Mod Podge around that color, so just making another line of Mod Podge so I can add more glitter around there because I want this part to be a little bigger. Again, this complements the tumbler really well, so I really want to allow this to sparkle on the tumbler. So you can see there's more glitter. I made it a little bit thicker. And if you notice, I went around the tumbler, I ran around the glitter, and I pressed down the glitter so so that glitter can be stuck to the tumbler so I can avoid all that sanding at the end there. I'm going to start adding my Mod Podge for my final strand of glitter. This is going to be a thin, or the fine glitter, which is going to be the Wasabi. So I'm going to make the line a little bit smaller, and I'm going to go around that last glitter that I applied, just like as I did all the other sides. And then add the glitter to that Mod Podge. This side of the tumbler is completed. I'll let you be the judge to see which side you like better, the bottom or the top. I personally like the bottom better, so I like the process that I do. Instead of doing it smaller to bigger, I like to add that lighter color and then fill it in with that darker color. So whichever way you find easier, you can go ahead and do it that way. And you can see I just got a chunk of glitter right off that on my hands while I was spinning the tumbler. So I'm going to clean this part up and then we're going to work on the bottom. Okay, so for the bottom, what I do is I start at the middle or the smallest. So I'm going to start at money bags and then I'll work my way out to the frosted mojito. It's just easier for that to follow that line and you'll see why. So adding to the bottom is just tracing the outside of your top of your tumbler. So what I do is I find the outside of the green, the fine glitter, the money bags, and I just take my Mod Podge brush and I just take the end and I find that end and I just carry it on to the bottom of the tumbler. Whichever way it goes is that's how the glitter will land. So I try not to overthink this. You can see this part, how it just climbs right over that bottom there. It looks like that tumbler is cracked open and you can see that pretty geode. And I just fill in the bottom. And this allows me to clean up any bottom of the tumbler that was not filled in all the way by the glitter. So you can wait to the end to do that. So I just make sure I trace it and then I make that same little pointy or kind of rounded tip to make a thinner tip at the end here. The way I do the bottom is I place it between my knees. I have it on the arm still. I place it between my knees and then I just Mod Podge it like this. I'm just doing it a little differently for y'all, just so I can see it on camera, just so y'all can see it on camera. So if this is easier to do it this way, this really helps me. And now I'm going to pour that money bags on that area, and it's going to stick wherever that Mod Podge was. And then I'm going to pour it on the bottom so I can clean up that bottom some too. So it looks like a nice, just one geode. It's not like two separate pieces. And now I'm gonna move on to the next color, which is the salted Margarita. And I'm just going to trace it just like how I did the other one. So I'm making the same thickness as it is on the side of the cup. And then after I apply the Mod Podge, I'll go ahead and apply the glitter. And then I'll repeat this process for the final two colors. My bottom is completed, and you can see that geode really following along on the bottom as it did the top. Now you can make your geode as big as you want. You can make the entire cup geode, but I like to keep it kind of simple like this, because what I do is I add a name like kind of going diagonally, and that way you can really show off the geode and just kind of complements the cup, in my opinion. But if you want to add more geodes, you can add like a little small one right here, or you can continue to make this one wider. So you can add another color. Like I would probably add probably this the fine money bags color a little bit, and then maybe another color on that. So whatever makes your little heart happy on these tumblers, go ahead and make it your own. Now, before I move on to the next step, I'm going to take my finger or my gloved finger, and I'm going to give my tumbler a good pat down, or just really pat down the chunky glitter and the medium grade glitter to the tumbler, because I really, really want to avoid a lot of sanding. So make sure you do that very, very well. Make sure if you do see any, now that the tumbler's been, your first section of your tumbler should be almost dry, the Mod Podge. So if you see any glitter that's sticking up, just pick that right off. If you can't get it with your fingers, you can use the tweezers. You can use tweezers, or you can use those backwards tweezers, what I call them, from Cricut. You like your weeding tools. And then I go around the second side, and I make sure that's pressed down as well. So make sure you're pressing it down very, very well. And then after I'm finished this, we're going to spray this with acrylic sealer. The sealer that I use is from Krylon. It's crystal clear acrylic coating. I purchased mine from Amazon. I will be adding the link in my description below. I do not recommend you spraying this inside, because this does have a very strong smell. So I'm going to take this outside. How I spray my glitter, how I lock in my glitter, is I spray my tumbler with a coat of the sealer, and then I wait 5 seconds, I spray another coat, wait 5 seconds, and then spray a final coat. It is very generous coats, so I spray a total of 3 coats on my tumbler. After I spray a total of 3 coats, I then allow my tumbler to dry on just a cup turner. I do not turn my turner on, or you can put it on a drying rack. I let it dry for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to go spray this tumbler and let it dry, and then I'll see y'all for the next step. Hey guys, I'm back with my tumbler. It has been drying for about 30-45 minutes, and my tumbler is now ready for its next step. So before I start my next step, I just want to explain a couple things. Whenever I sprayed the tumbler with the acrylic coating, I was only focusing on the green glitter, because this glitter, the white glitter that you've already applied, is already sealed in with the epoxy. So just in case you did not know that, I was just spraying 3 times on the green glitter. Another thing is, my next step is going to be epoxy in this tumbler. I added 30 milliliters of epoxy. So I added 15 milliliters of part A, and then 15 milliliters of part B. If you want to add a decal to your tumbler, I would go ahead and add that decal now. So if you want to add that name I was telling you about, or anything that you would like to add, I would add that decal now, as long as you're adding it to your white space, because your white space, your white glitter is completely cured. You can add that decal and then go ahead and apply that epoxy. If you want to add a decal on the green spots, then you have to apply a coat of epoxy, and then you add the decal. So I'm using 30 milliliters of epoxy. If you were to add a decal, I would probably use 40 milliliters of epoxy. So that's 20 milliliters of part A and 20 milliliters of part B, totaling 40 milliliters of epoxy. The reason why I would use more epoxy if I'm adding a decal, because I will know that that would most likely be my last coat of epoxy. So I'm going to epoxy this with my 30 milliliters of epoxy. I'm gonna let it spin on the cup turner for about 6 to 8 hours. After it's been turning for about 6 to 8 hours, I'm then going to turn off my cup turner. Once I've turned off my cup turner, I'm going to allow it to dry up to 24 hours. So after 24 hours of it drying, that's whenever I would apply my decal. Once I apply my decal, I can go ahead and apply another coat of epoxy. So if you apply this coat of epoxy and then you notice your geode part, or the part where the chunky glitter was added, is a little raised, you might need to sand it very, very lightly. You need to sand your tumbler with about 220 grit sanding block. The reason why you need to use a finer sanding block rather than like 120 or 100 grit sanding block is because you will sand away the glitter. I explained that in one of my other videos, how to glitter a tumbler using epoxy method. I'll go ahead and add that video to my description below if you haven't seen that. So make sure whenever you are sanding a tumbler, you are sanding it lightly and you're using a very fine grit or a finer grit sanding block or paper. So again, I use a 220 grit sanding block, and I would just sand this very lightly. I don't add any water. I dry sand. It's just a preference of mine. I don't wet sand. And then once I finish sanding it, you're going to notice that it's going to be foggy or maybe a couple scratches. That's all right. I would then wipe it down with 91% alcohol just to remove any oils I may have added to the tumbler. And then I would apply that last coat of epoxy and or decal, then the last coat of epoxy. So obviously you'd add your decal first and then you'd add your last coat of epoxy. So I hope all of that made sense to y'all. And I'm almost done applying my coat of epoxy, and I'm going to allow this to spin, and then I will return to show y'all my finished product. All right, so my tumbler is completely dry on the turner, and you can see it looks really, really nice under epoxy. Now, like I said, if you have some bumpiness on this tumbler, go ahead and sand it down with a little bit of sanding paper, 200 grit or more. Make sure you sand it lightly, and then go ahead and put another coat of epoxy on here. So I didn't put my decal on here because I'm going to sell it like this, and then whoever wants to purchase this, they'll add the name down the side, and that's when I will place another coat of epoxy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. I'll see y'all next time.